Hello and welcome to the Long Talk here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Hi, I'm Paul Baines, the founder of New Zealand Sports Radio, and we have got a fascinating talk today. We are not going to get through everything this gentleman has done because he's got 26 entries on his LinkedIn. So clearly he's had a full life and done a lot of different things. But as you can probably tell by the jerseys I've got in the background, yes, we're heading over into the world of cricket. And I'm being joined by Andrew Walton. How are you doing, sir?
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm wonderful. How are you doing today?
Not so bad, not so bad. So apparently our last day of sunshine before 6 days of rain. So making the most of it by sitting inside and having video conversations with people, obviously. So we'll get on to what you'll do to the sort of the blind cricket stuff later. But what was your first ever sporting memory?
First ever sporting memory of playing or observing?
Either, whichever, whatever came first.
Oh, would be probably listening to the radio in a small country town growing up, and Australia playing England overseas on I think it would have been probably the BBC back then, and then going down to the local nets with my dad and brother and just having a hit as you do, and then trying to be a big boy one day.
Oh, so Test match special. Oh wow, Henry Blofeld. Well, actually, probably before.
We're going a long way down back to the early 70s there, Paul. So this is before it was even really shown on TV. So yeah, we've been about 1972, 73, I reckon.
So it's always been cricket.
Country. I grew up in a small country town called Marupna, which is a few hours north of Melbourne. And as just generally in country life, you'd play cricket, you'd play football, being Australian rules, basketball, probably the three main sports in our area. And then you'd drift around, you'd play golf, tennis, hockey, whatever sort of, generally all ball sports. Yeah, cricket was the one I probably gravitated more towards, I think, earlier. I was lucky I had a very, very good coach and teacher, and a fellow called Max Connors early on, who took a lot of great care with teaching us the basic fundamentals of the game. And I think because that experience for me was so good, it connected with me deeply early on.
For anyone who's not been to the state of Victoria, I went there for the Lions tour. What it be 6-8 years ago now, and one of the things that struck me as I'm driving around is that not only does every high school, primary school have a set of AFL posts, but so does every single kindergarten, which just blew my mind. That yes, you can't walk down a street without seeing AFL posts somewhere. They do a fantastic job with the youth and bringing and developing the sport that way, don't they?
Yeah, they certainly do. And being fortunate in a country town, we had a basketball court and a tennis court. So there was never an excuse. So within your immediate visibility, there was always a space to go and do something of some sort. And you'd have those who would want to do things either individually or in small groups, so maybe a basketball type situation, and those that would gravitate towards the more team orientated. So you'd play a cricket match or kick-to-kick footy or goals in, as we used to sort of call it in the schoolyard, where someone stands in the goal square and kicks the ball out, and X number of kids will fight across the ball and try and kick it back for a goal, and you change over. But it was really learning in those, those schoolyard games were more an extension of your own backyard, because the other thing too, in a country town, was not unusual that every few houses you'd have a paddock or a block or a spare space. So this is well before there were housing estates. So again, you'd be encouraged to, well, if you didn't have a big enough backyard to do sport in, you could just go a few blocks or a few doors down, and there'll be plenty of space to go and do things. And that's where, I suppose, appeal for that grew. And I came through an era where probably my first consciousness of cricket was at that juncture of traditional and World Series cricket. And so, I suppose personalities like the Chappells, the Lillies, the Thompsons, they were amplified, to a ridiculous amount. And when you're a 10, 11-year-old kid in a small country town, all of a sudden, they play cricket at night time. There's lights and there's colour. How's that all sort of all work? So it was really appealing.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah, the whole Jerry Packer bringing the excitement to the game. So did you actually play to any kind of level, or did it just at school level, or did you make it to rep level or anything?
A very, very modest, mediocre career, Paul, and thank you. I think that if you've counted my entries on LinkedIn, well done, because 26 is probably about my batting average, being generous. Oh, look, I think as a junior, I was fairly fortunate there. In country regions, I made a few rep teams in that sort of space. Yet, most of my cricket was played country level. I played my first senior cricket as a 13-year-old. That's in senior men's grade. And look, I probably might have been okay, but at the age of 17, you find things like cars and girls and social activities, and it sort of tends to distract you a little bit. And I gravitated more towards football at that age. But then came to Melbourne, and I've been in Melbourne ever since, and played a lot of suburban cricket early on, which has been an incredible experience in so many ways in life. And then got to my sort of 30s and wanted to pursue a coaching path. So to do that, I felt I had to be involved in Premier cricket, so your grade cricket sort of equivalent, and spent a number of years just as a captain in the lower grades and playing more of a development role in helping players sort of come through into that space. So I've been very fortunate that over that time in my coaching, I've worked with some amazing players, from test players all the way through the ranks at different ages, different times. But as a player myself, no, a very, very, very modest, very ordinary all-rounder who would sometimes keep, sometimes bowl, sometimes bat. If anything, probably I learned that most of my career I would insert myself in a game, because I did have the good fortune of being captain a lot. I would insert myself in a situation where it was needed. So if it was an overcast day and a crappy deck and things weren't great, I'd open the batting and try and just hold up and do my space. If conditions were good and fine, okay, guys, it's your turn to go and enjoy yourselves, and I'll just sit back and watch and take that sort of role. But I was very lucky just to finish in my last playing time with Richmond Cricket Club, that I was able to be surrounded by a number of excellent coaches and mentors and people that were really strong on junior development and game development, and they made sure that was a cultural acceptance across the whole entire club. Because it's different. Just one thing, Mike, like in some states in Australia, the grade cricket structure is outstanding. The example I'll give is that Mike Hussey has played his whole career for Wanneroo as an under-9 player all the way through. Justin Langer at Scarborough, Matthew Hayden at Valleys. They've had their whole career go through one club. In Victoria, that's not the same structure. You actually got to sort of get yourself into Premier cricket somehow eventually. So you might have played for a suburban team or a school team or some other sort of team somehow, and then your Premier grade club might be the 4th or 5th club that you actually belong to. And that's it's a little bit different. I don't think it's a great pathway. But yeah, once you get in there, trying to make it as easy for others to find their way through was a path I went on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think if we can keep people in one club, that gets people get that emotional attachment to that club, and even past their playing days, they'll go back and they'll support, be it on committees, be it the treasurer, be it the person who helps cut the grass or whatever it is, and that applies across all sports.
Totally. I was very fortunate just to in my original club at Maribyrnong, one of the first jobs as a 14-year-old playing senior cricket, because I also did a daily paper round before school, and my job was that when the paper round was finished at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday, I would go down to the turf wicket and I'd be the first one to roll the wicket for the week. So you'll learn those sort of skills about what makes a club happen. You have to have a facility, and part of your facility is taking care of you. And that was my job, was to roll the wicket. So it's those sorts of, I suppose, things are probably a bit forgotten about these days when it comes to, we tend to have what time we play, and we rock up, we play, and then once that's done, we move on to the next activity. But
yeah, exactly. And it's one of the things that we have a problem here in New Zealand with our rugby, is that up until high school you play for a club, then it's high school rugby, and then after high school rugby you go back to playing club rugby. But if you've taken those years away from your club, how do you get that emotional attachment? How do you get people to come back? And I think that's so. I think trying to keep things in a club in a one, keep that emotional attachment all the way through is definitely a good way of doing it. So it looks like your first sort of big coaching role was with the Fitzroy Doncaster club back in back about 2008, where you started as kind of that was your first coaching thing. But prior to that, all that way you're doing, you say you weren't a professional player, so involved in steel, in plastics, in recycling, working your way up through management. Ever have that struggle of kind of, well, I've got to be I've got all this travel I've got to do during the week, being the national sales manager. But how do I still make it to cricket and juggling all that kind of fun?
Yeah, and also throw in the mix having a family as well, which is always a complicated at times. And look, I mean, honestly, probably I look back on it now and think, yeah, I probably could have been a better, more attentive father at certain times during that experience. But it's in that pursuit of chasing aspiration or enjoyment or happiness, and it was a constant battle with trying to work things through. I was sort of always lucky that when I stepped into the coaching side of things, Paul, that I was able to surround myself. I suppose I regard myself always as a pretty good organizer and a connector, and so I didn't bring into the coaching space because I had no playing capability. There was no real ego about, oh, this is how I did it back in my day, follow me because I've been there. So I looked at, well, what other skills can I bring to the table here, and I try to always apply a degree of a sense of order, professional behaviour and standards, and work at introducing people to each other, because you'll always pick up some useful belief from a conversation with somebody. And early on, I was able to convince a number of people that were friends or colleagues or known to help me on the coaching side. So if I was absent for any reason, I was able to bring them into the space as well. And I suppose on that coaching journey, it's sort of a link to where you are from a little while ago, but a fellow called Peter Roach, who was a CEO of Northern Districts for quite some time, and Roachy before that was a first-class Victorian keeper in cricket, now Cricket Australia general manager. But Peter was a great influence on me at the end of his playing career, just in keeping things in balance and introducing me to some people, and I'll always be indebted to him for that. And he was the one that got me into Fitzroy after a stint before at Hawthorn Monash, where I'd been there for previous 2 years. But that was the time where cricket was probably also going through a bit of a change. The T20 game was starting to come onto the circuit, and I had the good fortune of working with some profile players in that space, and one that didn't spend a lot of time with club cricket, but a fellow called Dirk Nanners, who was coming through, left arm fast bowler, and Dirk was sort of coming through the international scene. I think in 1 year back in that decade, he'd played for like 8 T20 franchises in the one year, and he also played for two. He played for Holland and Australia in the 1 year as well. He played for Holland because that was his native country of birth, and then when Australia realised actually how good he was, they quickly pulled him in to play for Australia. Yet around that, he was already playing on the county scene as a T20 specialist, and as well as for Victoria here in Australia. And he a number of conversations with Dirk, an amazing guy. He had a Japanese ski lodge. He plays saxophone, and cricket for him was like just something to do. It was like nowhere near the sort of elite professionalism. Yet he was very, very good. And he, just listening to him talk about how the game was changing globally, sort of made me sort of realise quickly that, okay, that you can bring that into your coaching side of things. And just the last story there was the time at Fitzroy reconnected me with a young fellow called Glenn Maxwell, who was coming through then as an 18-year-old and sort of facing sort of crossroads in where his career could have gone, and to see where he's sort of taken it to over many, many years since then. Not just here, but I've had the pleasure of watching him play IPL for Kings 11 Punjab, and you see the adulation for a player for his talent and his ability. It's just such an incredibly grateful thing to view, because in the end, the players want to put on a good show. They want to entertain. They want to have fun. They want to show off all their skills, and they want to win. and they want to win. So yeah, great experience. I sort of feel, Fitzroy Doncaster gave me a lot of opportunity in that period of time.
But looking at this also, but I guess about 6 years before, you'd moved from basically a pretty industrial work life to work for, and still are part of Interact Sport. So how did you jump from from sort of plastics recycling to getting into the business side of sport?
Yes, so as things will happen through life, so true story. So in 1990, I'd worked for the Pratt family in the Visi Group for 6 years, and an amazingly great experience. It got to a stage where things weren't working out, and it came time to part ways, and I became a casualty of a management changeover. That happens in life, and that was 1999. I hadn't been overseas properly then, so I bought some tickets for the '99 World Cup in the UK, and I basically followed the Australian cricket team around. So I went from every match through the Super 6 series through to the final. And while I was over there through that 6-7 week period, there used to be a weekly magazine you could pick up in the Walkabout Tavern that would tell you the results and stuff that was happening all over the world. And they would carry footy results from back home, if you like. And when I came back, I was playing cricket then with South Yarra, and we were developing a website for our club. And the purpose of the website was to put some information on there, some scores, some photos, some sponsored details, some news. And then we started converting what was a program called Statman that we used to calculate the presentation night awards. And we used the basis of that to create a scorecard so that they could appear on our club website. And we then quickly realised that, okay, you follow the logic through. The scorecard has 2 teams. They belong to a competition. And the club we were at, we had four teams at our club that were in 2 different associations. So theoretically, I was the captain coach of A grade. I could play on the Saturday, but if I wanted to, I could play Sunday on the mercantile comp, and different game, different match if I wanted to. Yet when we're trying to manage it from an IT perspective in the back end, we wanted to avoid duplication of player records and information. So that became a bit of a hobby project over the next sort of 2 or 3 years, and that's caused the formation of what became Interact Sport. So we were just trying to find a better way for our cricket club to capture what was going on and show it to the world, and it just continued to extend from that. We felt we had a pretty good idea, and then just checked in with some other clubs in the space and other people we knew around the area, because the internet was starting to take off, and off we went from there. And that's an Interact Sport today. So where are we? Nearly 20 years later on, employs 26 people in West Melbourne, services Cricket Australia, the ECB, Netball Australia, Football Federation Australia, and has basically got, even though cricket is the focus, now does live streaming as well, yet cricket on the platform underneath all that, any sport with a ball and a score, there's a solution there for it. So that sort of took us from just, I suppose, in essence, trying to find something to do for our club and do it better. And then eventually we turned it into a business, and it became good fun.
So the Walkabout Pub Shepherd's Bush was the was the start of all that. Wow. Now, if you anyone who has had an OE in London from Australia, and also from New Zealand for that matter, will probably have been to the Walkabout Pub, unless you're a teetotaler. And even if you are, you've probably been down there as well. It is, it's a famous institution over there in London. The other thing, I guess, that you might have had around that time, and we're going to be showing our ages here, is do you remember seeing teletext and CFAX on the TV over in the UK?
Yeah,
because that was another thing that a lot of South Africans and Aussies and Kiwis would go over to the UK and go, wow, look, I can actually get the local cricket scores on the telly on CFAX. And so, yes, you would, and obviously those services don't exist now because the internet has taken over. But that was the kind of service that you were taking to the next level, I guess, or next stage, really, over here. Yeah,
we want people to understand that what was in your scorebook was actually valuable to a whole range of people, apart from those playing on the day. And if anything, I suppose a catalyst point was in the early days when we went to Cricket Australia and started to sort of work through where it could go, which took 7 years to work through in the end. Yet in that time, one of the conversations, so Ricky Ponting at the time was captain of Australia. And if you wanted to, and Ricky had played with Mowbray Cricket Club in Launceston since the age of 13, 14. Yet if you wanted to see any of Ricky's junior record, which is quite illustrious, you actually had to physically go to Mowbray Cricket Club and virtually walk in and take the scorecards off the shelf and to see what he did. Or you might go to the local newspaper and go for the microfiche and trawl through it. Yet we were coming up in an era, so I think it was about 06, 07, I might be a year or two out. I recall there was an under-19 carnival where Victoria played New South Wales. And at that age group, in the Victorian team, you had people like Aaron Finch, Peter Neville, Peter Siddle, Adam Crosswaite. New South Wales had Moises Enriques, Dave Warner, John Hastings, Usman Khawaja, Tom Cooper, I forgot my name, Steve O'Keefe. Yet in that era, at that age, well, we knew Aaron Finch from Colac via Geelong, not through playing in Victoria. We knew Peter Siddle from Morwell through Dandenong, Peter Neville from Baldwin through Melbourne. So these players were coming up, and they're, even at that age, they were playing rep cricket underage, yet their whole career was already online. And here I am now. I've got 4 sons, but my youngest 2 are 8 and 5. And the 8-year-old who's playing modified under 10 rules, they expect their match every Saturday to be scored live on the MyCricket app, so they can compare what's happened on the spot. And that's just I suppose where we're seeing move at the generation coming through. It's on demand, and on demand it can be entertainment, it can be social media, it can be stats. They're not going to wait. So when we started this 18 years ago, we'd score the match, and at the end of the match, I would write that scorecard out on a piece of paper. I would fax that piece of paper to the administrator. The administrator would take the fax and enter it into AAP, and that's on a Saturday. And then maybe by Monday, it might be in the paper.
Yep. Now
we're doing it live.
Now it's all live. Absolutely, and there's multiple sources of it now as well, which is kind of competing there. So alongside running that, you're going through your coaching career. Say we talked about Fitzroy. You become a T20 champions for Pranran.
Pran Cricket Club, famous for so Sam Loxton, who played with Bradman, come from the Pran Cricket Club, and Bob Parrish was one of the eminent administrators there. So very strong connection to the club into Australian cricket. And when I was asked to go and coach at Pran, I felt really fortunate because I was able to step into an environment where 4 players with international experience and not available all the time in great environment, yet to be able to learn from them, understand what they'd gone through in life. Dave Hussey had been a tremendous help for us because his father, Ted, God bless Ted, no longer with us, but Ted was a great help for us in business in WA back in the early days in opening some doors to us because Ted ran the Wanneroo Cricket Club in the background. And being able to, and particularly that these guys were at the forefront, more so David and probably Bryce were going through that white ball sort of change from being one day T20 and just a complete sponge. And then, of course, every year, Chris Rogers, he would come back from, so he was, this is before he was at Middlesex, so he would have been at Gloucestershire, I think, from memory, but yet he'd already spent 5 or 6 years playing internationally. So to be able to learn from those fellas in the dressing room was absolutely incredible experience. And they would give you, and we're all still good friends now. We've maintained that friendship all through life. Chris was a major reason in opening some doors for me to go and spend some time with Middlesex in the UK, which was just an incredible experience firsthand. But cricket takes you through in so many different ways. You don't have to have been the best player, but if you're a good person, you treat each other well and try to help each other, you'll find a way through. And along the way, we won a few games as well, which was always tremendously enjoyable to celebrate those with those people. And it seems funny that when you see, guys like that or players like that, they're on TV, they're at the highest end of their profile. Dave Hussey played for Kolkata Knight Riders. He amazing player in the IPL. Yet he got as much of an enjoyment playing club cricket in finals because it's like you get to go back and do something with your mates who are just genuinely good people that you've grown up with. So that was a great space to be involved with.
Yeah, and that's where part of the thinking here in junior sports in New Zealand is changing over the last couple of years from being, okay, how do we have a pathway for players to progress as quickly as they can and be successful, to, okay, people stay in sport because they're playing with their mates and it's enjoyable. It's not about getting them the best skills as quickly as possible, or therefore it's about getting them enjoying the sport. Then they'll pick up those skills along the way, and doing it, staying with your mates is a big part of it.
It is. And the other part from that, even though cricket was what bound us together, Paul, but yet around that, we all had kids. Our other halves, our other partners, our wives all get along, and they all get along well still. They're all good friends today. So you create that sort of community that probably might come more naturally in a country town environment where you're all a bit closer together. Yet the same sort of thing happens in that sort of space. So cricket was the connector for us, and feel very grateful for that.
Yeah, and then next step up, then Melbourne Cricket Club, and also across to some time with Middlesex as a guest there. Now, I was a member of Middlesex Cricket Club 2003 through to about 2003, 2004 at the Oval. Going down there watching there's be me and about 10 other people watching a county game at the weekend. Yeah, I mean, obviously the MCG there and Oval.
Yep.
I mean, two fantastic grounds to be
Lords.
to be Middlesex. I was Surrey.
Lords. Surrey's at
I was member of Surrey County Cricket Club for 2 years.
Yeah.
Not Middlesex. Sorry, the Lords. Get myself all mixed up now. But Lords and the MCG, two of the iconic grounds in world cricket, and to be coaching a team on that gets to play on that patch must have been fantastic.
I could speak forever about the Middlesex experience. I was fortunate enough to go there for eight weeks, and Richard Scott was the coach at the time, and they allowed me to immerse myself totally across the entire platform. So from the first 11 through the second 11 through the academy squad, and that was practice days at Lords, match day at Lords in the T20 one-day stuff at the time. Also did a couple of away matches down at Sussex at Brighton. Sussex at Brighton, played down there, and you just the ridiculous interactions you get with different players at certain stages. So I remember at Sussex, I had the chance to spend an hour and a quarter in the nets with Yasser Arafat, who was a up and coming T20. Just off, he wasn't playing until the Friday, and he wanted someone to help him out. And he asked me, he said, "Oh, can you?" And he was the opposition. And then even getting down to the match day experience with Middlesex, and you've got Owen Morgan, David Malam, Stephen Finn, these sort of guys in the team, Paul Sterling, a number of incredible sort of internationals. And being able to see how they prepare and what they go through behind the scenes was just an incredible experience. And Lords itself on match day, my goodness, if there was it does take a while to sort of absorb what's going on sort of out there amongst it at county level. Probably one of those.
Lords is a funny place. So admittedly, I'm going back 20 years now, or nearly 20 years. But if you go and watch a county game there as a non-member, there is literally you and about 6 other people in this ground. You're allowed in one stand. They don't open up the other stands that you can watch it from. And you go along for international, and finding a patch of grass to sit down on and have a picnic or just go bite for a sandwich is impossible. The place is very different under both days, but it's still a wonderful place.
Oh, amazing. And to be able to take my family and I've got all these photos of Finn at the time. He was just turned 3, and his whole excitement of going to Lords on match day as a 3-year-old was being able to take, because they let spectators come out at the lunch break onto the arena, which is a beautiful thing. And one day we were playing Nottingham. I think there might have been probably 3,000 or 4,000 there, so it was a good size crowd on a Sunday playing Nottingham. So and yet Finn's highlight was being able to take out his double-decker buses and play with them on the Lord's surface. And I've got these wonderful photos of like from ground level of the magnificent Lord's dressing room in the background, yet Finn's entire focus was on the buses and playing with as a young fella. So he loves his cricket, but it'll be just memories from that are amazing. So I've been very, very fortunate in connecting with some incredible people in through cricket, but have become very, very deep friends through life and still hold them very, very dear, very, very dear.
You talk about that magic turf. I've got a paperweight somewhere which is about this sort of size, that's basically turf encapsulated in plastic.
I have got a camera case from 1999. This is before, so you took actual camera. I've got a camera case from a film where I took some turf from Lords after the '99 World Cup final. Australia beat Pakistan, and it's still in my fridge today.
In your fridge? Oh my word!
Yep. Things we do.
Absolutely, Lords, get onto him and fine him for damaging the turf. I mean, geez.
No. It's all.
You're talking about that setup that you've got there on the technology side, which is any sport that's got a ball and a score, you can put up there. So you got involved with the Australian Sports Technologies Network, which I guess is talking with different sports about how you improve that side of things. Has it always been on the kind of reporting side, or has it also been on the, I guess, because there's technology from a reporting point of view, there's also technology from a sports science point of view.
Yes, it's been more on the technology around community involvement, participation, and I suppose now we're seeing digital content come through from that. Hasn't really been involved on the sports science side of things too much, and I've been very fortunate where I've had that balance that in into commercial professional life, access to that digital data, sort of sometimes geeky sort of stuff, but I've had the chance to balance it out and go and actually play in the park with a group of players from a whole different range of backgrounds, and you get to see, I suppose, the effects of your work into their space and into their sort of families. The sports science, and massive admiration for people like Catapult as an example, who've taken that to a complete different art form again, and they've really focused really heavily on that. Whereas our intent was more to that if you played for Rotorua under 11s, then yep, you could be on the platform. Or if you played for the Auckland Aces, yep, you can be on the platform as well. Yet the ability to find that detail, as you didn't need to be like Ricky Ponting, go to the cricket club, go to the shelf, pull it down, and see what went on. It didn't matter where you were. So,
and obviously they don't wear white gloves to do that as well, so you don't damage the paper.
Sport for all, Paul. Sport for all.
And a totally different sport, but Bowls Australia. I mean, how did you get involved with them?
Bowls Australia. So I spent some time on the board there. I was an appointed director from a digital perspective. So Bowls Australia were going through a transformation where they were looking for people outside the sport specifically to come in and bring their experiences. And on the board, so most boards, there's elected directors and there's appointed directors. And so the elected directors were from the States or from a Bowls background. And at that time, Mel Jones, the broadcaster on Cricket Now, or ex-Australian player. So Mel Jones and I were both the appointed directors. And because Bowls was shifting into the more digital exposure, Mel, this is going back a number of years, she was already doing some work on Fox and seeing how the broadcast element was changing. And I suppose I brought from it more the community aspect where what sort of tools and products were going to be used in the sport ahead. So I came onto the Bowls board there for a short period of time, which was around the Commonwealth Games sort of period as well, which was in the Gold Coast, and the sport here was probably taking a more prominent position across the globe. Yet underpinning it, ironically, most of the people in head office of Bowls that I either worked with or related to, I knew through cricket. They didn't come from a Bowls background. They were working in the sport, but the actual the CEO, the game dev people, I knew them through our cricket history. So it's I think once you're involved in sport, it's interesting how it sort of goes in different directions.
And I think a lot of people see Bowls as being a older person's sport. Side of it, and
it's
that
not.
might be, and it's it has that kind of that kind of
connotation
around it. And yet, having dealt with Bowls New Zealand here, I found that they've been some of the most dynamic administration groups around. And again, funny enough, you're talking about being the cricket connection. Again, they've got the cricket connection. One of the guys who helped run the Cricket World Cup here in Australia, in New Zealand, is now part of the Bowls New Zealand setup. So yeah, it's interesting how they have both how that crossover happens there. Two sports where your grass or the lawn or whatever, the weave, whatever you're dealing with, is extremely important, and played in good weather. I think So quite actually more similarities than at first sight you might think.
It's also just from if you take the sporting element away from it for a moment, it's actually quite a unique activity in that from a sport perspective, if I just focus on Australia, so from a government perspective, it draws funding, support and attention from Sport Australia for participation, activity, competition. Plus it's a medal sport, the Com Games. Yet it also draws support, funding and assistance from the health department. It's about active living, lifestyle that fits into different demographics. It also fits across, it's very welcoming and embracing for players of all abilities. Now, whether that disability be vision impaired, whether it be hearing impaired, or whether it be a physical disability, having seen firsthand the Bowls community, particularly at the elite level, Josh, they're a mixed teams but the player, so Josh, even though he qualifies for the disability category, he actually plays in the open category because he's generally bloody good. And that's a sort of inclusion and diversity which is quite uncommon in a lot of other sports. And Bowls has probably forgotten a little bit about that because we do see it as being an older sport. Yet I live in in a suburban Fitzroy, Paul. So hipster heaven, you would say. And our local bowls club, Fitzroy Bowls Club, that do compete on TV in the National League, sponsored by Bluntstone. I can boot Bluntstone boots. I can absolutely assure the average age demographic is not my nana. much broader than that. And as I would say, if you go down to Fitzroy Bowls Club on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, the place is heaving.
It's an amazing sport that is it's kind of an underground sport that's got an awful lot of representation now. I do know in New Zealand that they're aware that they have to be, because it does have this older image. They're aware they have to keep recruiting a lot because obviously people die off, unfortunately. But also he said that one of their strengths is that they do have a lot of 70 or 80-year-olds who are there, who are retired, and who are happy to spend a lot of time with their club. So again, volunteers isn't a big problem for them on the whole.
No. And they bring wisdom. They bring wisdom, they bring experience, they bring mentoring capability. So I would encourage your audience, Paul, wherever you are in New Zealand, North or South Island, if you're curious about your bowls club, go knock on the door and walk in.
Yep, absolutely. And you've been involved in, as I say, 26 things, and Bangalore, you ended up, you've been a cricket coach over there for, well, it says for 7 years, but I can see you're in Australia now. You're not in Bangalore, so
no. A very dear friend, Irfan Sayed, is the founder of the KIOC Academy in Bangalore, in India. And to put that in context, the KIOC Academy has around about 2,800 students, of which about 1,500 plus will go there every day of the week, Monday to Sunday. It's open from 6:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night. There's 2-hour classes every day, and typically from early April until the middle of May, in their summer holiday break, the academy runs what they call summer camp. That goes for 43 days. And in that 43 days, they like to bring over a series of specialist coaches and to be there for certain periods of time. And in the Indian culture, it's seen to be important that your coaches, it's a balance of internationals, and there'll be some profile people like Craig McDermott's been there in the past, Ian Chappell, obviously at the top end of the tree. But there are people like John Brearley from Lancashire, who a lot of people won't know of. Yet John Brearley, who's now I think in his late 60s, 70s, he's one of the most amazing batting coaches in the world, and he's been going there every year for 12 years. I've had this would have been my 8th year in a row. Selfishly, I love that time of year because the IPL's on. I get to go to the IPL while it's happening. It's a great spiritual sort of retreat to really ground yourself back in the game and be just, if you're a cricket nuffy, it's an unbelievable existence. And I feel very fortunate that Irfan brings myself over. In the last 2 years, every year I've made a habit where I take somebody with me who's never been to India before, and that's had some interesting times. The last 2 years, so Tom Scollay from Cricket Mentoring. So Tom, 2 years ago, he came with me for the first time individually. And then last year, we took 12 others with us who hadn't been to India before as well, to share that complete sort of Indian experience. So it's a little sort of window in my world where I'm very fortunate to be able to go there. Yet I sort of like to take people with me and sort of give them a view of what cricket life is in India, because apart from the cricket side of things, we go, we train, we play, we coach the other players there. And there are players there from the age of 4 all the way through to 30. When IPL's on, the players there, that's their practice away from their regular stuff. So it's got an amazing sort of breadth of audience of people who come to the academy. It's just an incredible facility, very high standard. Yet we also balance it with community activities. So we'll go to orphanages, we'll go in the streets, and we'll spend some time around and mix with the Indian community. And the people are always so welcoming. One other little thing, and I miss it this year terribly, I have a very balanced diet, Paul. I like most things in life. Yet the Indian experience, that's when I'll go vegetarian. And because the food, and I do a lot of my vegetables, but full-on vegetarian in India, it is just an incredibly great experience, and you feel much better for it. So if you're able to in your life, even if you go to either Chennai, Mumbai, or Bangalore for a period, IPL is the most it's like so Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bangalore, it's 48,000 people. It's a dry event, no alcohol. So they're fueled on Pepsi, Pakoras, and Domino's Pizza, and they go off like a frog in a sock for 4 hours, mate. At a sound louder than a Metallica concert. It's ridiculous. And the thing is,
wow.
Pardon?
No mango lassies. It's all the American brands got themselves in there. Jeez.
It's an amazing live experience, and the atmosphere is incredible. And people are, they'll obviously Bangalore has Virat Kohli, AB de Villiers, so that just goes off like hard to imagine. Yet they'll cheer as loudly for Steve Smith, who's playing for Rajasthan Royals. They'll cheer as loudly for Glenn Maxwell playing for Kings 11 Punjab. They just want to see good cricket and see a good contest. And it's a wonderful lens to look through. And players like Brendan McCullum, an incredible success and so well appreciated. In fact, there's so many. To be honest, like now as the IPL, we're at IPL 10 or 11 now. When you go to a match live, and apart from the players, and you look around the arena at those who are assistant coaches or trainers or media or security, there's a lot of people there from New Zealand and Australia that play that support scene in the background, in the media side of things too. Ian Smith's he's a regular over there. Daryl Tuffy, I think, from memory.
I must. I'll be honest. The IPL was what turned me off cricket. As you can say, I was a member at Surrey County Cricket. I used to go to. I would sit in front of the TV as a kid and watch a 5-day Test match. But when and I think it was really Hayden that was the catalyst for this, because he had an IPL team, he had a Shoot Shield team, and also an English county team, and all three had qualified for the Champions Cup or whatever it's called. And you're like, seriously, how can it be a serious competition when the same player has played for three of the teams that are qualified for it? And at that point, I kind of lost. That's my lost. Sort of fell out of love with the whole thing. Just it became that. As you said, that player who played for 8 different T20 teams in the same
Dirk Nannes. Yeah.
There's just no. Where's the connection with the actual with the emotional connections with these teams if they are just going to keep switching between clubs?
Yeah, I suppose we've all got to find our way in working with India ahead for the greatness of the game. And you would have seen firsthand beating India in a Test match last summer, how well that's received by the local audience. And we're very fortunate here that, well, fingers crossed, depending on COVID, that the Indian team will be touring here later this year, and it'll be probably in this calendar year, probably close to one of the biggest events on the planet when it comes to a TV broadcast audience of interest, because there's not much else going on at the moment, apart from your rugby. And God bless you all.
Except I got drenched on Saturday night watching it. Anyway, but that's another story. It is, and as the boys who host our cricket show, Swinging from the Hip, on a Thursday evening, 8 p.m. here on New Zealand Sports Radio. The IPL is, they'll say very clearly, the IPL is what goes, because kind of what everything else has to kind of work around. If the IPL says we're moving to this window, then everyone else gets out of the way. It's not it's a massively successful tournament. Fantastic.
Interesting one night to ask you guys the question on the show, because I suppose I've seen over the years of going and seeing that event regularly, seeing the improvement in a player like Trent Boult, who's absolutely become a master of his craft. And I would sort of put forward a case that he has learned so much from being in the IPL environment and being around players from other countries and learning all the nuances, yet then going out and having that experience under lights, prime time, 50,000 plus screaming fans, every single, an incredible sense of pressure and expectation to perform, because they expect every ball you've got to be on. You can't hide anywhere. And then to see him come back and play for his country to the standard that he has, as one example, I think that's been a major factor in where his improvement has come along, rather than relying purely upon, and don't get me wrong, I mean, domestic situation is very, 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 very strong. It just adds a layer of mastery to that sort of space. So that's where I think the IPL is probably not appreciated well enough for what it can provide.
And I think back in the day, county cricket was a place where your top internationals would go and have a
Yeah.
season. Now you've got sort of IPL, and they can travel with different to different 2020 tournaments. But what the big thing it does do is it gives you exposure to different types of surface to play on,
Yeah.
which is massive. And so you're quite right. Yeah, getting that exposure to something different, whether and also, as you say, the IPL, it's the biggest draw. So you're going to have the top coaches, the top players. You're going to be in a very good high performance environment.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, it's going to develop players. Don't get me wrong. And from that point of view, it's great. From my point, but from a fan's point of view, who is a member of a club, to see someone play for you one week and play for someone else the next week, you're like, my team, my team, kind of thing. That's where I found the difficulties. We're overrunning.
That's all right.
On time. So, but the main reason that I wanted to talk to you, we haven't even gotten to that yet, because as we talked about there with the bowls and the access to different to accessibility of the sport. Sport accessibility is something that really does interest me. And you've been involved for a couple of years now with the Australian blind cricket team.
The vision impaired, yeah.
And so how did how did that come about? And I guess B, let's talk about how they actually play the sport.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. So I completed my. I was fortunate enough where I completed my level 3 high performance coaching with Cricket Australia program. So the level 3, how that works here. So typically the level 3 has an intake of 30 people per year, and you've got to be nominated by. So you've got to be nominated by your state and endorsed to be part of it. So it's a national program, and it's a live-in program. So 8 days at the Academy in Brisbane. You cover 58 modules in that 8 days, of which only about 10% actually relate to cricket. The rest are more about diet, nutrition, sports science, emotional intelligence, planning, operations, logistics, a whole range of things. That because the expectation is that, and it's one thing that which Cricket Australia has done super well is make sure that players who are coming to the end of their career, if they want to be in cricket, they go for the right qualification process. So in my group, my year, we had people like Michael Klinger, Xavier Doherty, Johan Boyter, Matthew Elliott, and we had a very, very absolute incredible, and how it's worked out, we had an absolutely incredibly famous, who became a very famous cricket person who actually didn't do the course. Only 29 of us did it. One didn't show up because his wife gave birth to their daughter 2 days before he was supposed to start. And the reason why he enrolled for the level 3 was because he was actually going to come to Melbourne and start working Kookaburra. And his name is Tim Payne.
Now, I'm not a cricket person anymore, so I recognise the name, but I can't think why.
He's become the captain of Australia, Paul.
Oh, right.
So
he was supposed to be. He was on a coaching course, and he's become the captain of Australia. Wow.
He was on the coaching course because he was starting to prepare for life after cricket. Right. Anyway, the point being that after you finish the course, you then got 12 months to go through a series of programs and papers and prepare, report on how you've taken that experience into your life. And then at the end of the 12 months, you're assessed by the panel. And if you're assessed, you qualify level 3 coach. And then you're able to apply for, if you wanted to, a big bash or a first class and the qualification is international accreditation. And part of the assessment program is, okay, you've got it. And they go, well, what do you do next? Where does it go? And I'd already done about probably 13, 14 years of coaching in Premier cricket and was wanting to I didn't need to be the person in control. I didn't need to be the person at the front. I was more than happy to play a supporting role of some sort in the background on the side and move cones around or, pack up TheraBands, do whatever was needed. And when we looked at the gaps in my experience, the two things that stood out were, one, doing more in the women's side of things, which I already had a little bit, but I did want to do more. And the second part was around, so the women's space around tournaments. So whether you go on a road for a 6 or 8 week period, rather than just a week-to-week competition. And the second part was a disability space. And then Cricket Australia had taken direct control of vision impaired or blind cricket, deaf cricket, and all abilities, so players with a disability mentally of some sort, and had started to run a state program for each at a national carnival each year. I was reached out to by some of the Victorian staff, and I said, yeah, well, why not get involved? Actually, to be honest, when I was approached, I sat and worked out about 15 reasons why I shouldn't do it. And then that made me realise you should do it. So, and I was still coaching at the time, Melbourne Cricket Club, and so trying to coach a premier club and the state program with vision impaired. Yeah, it was a bit of a contrast, but it was probably one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life. And you basically in the vision impaired, I call that because even though it's referred to as blind cricket and has been forever and a day, and that's totally okay. Nothing wrong with that. But the reality is most of the players aren't actually blind. There are three levels of classification: B1, B2, and B3. So B1, yep, you're totally blind. You can't see a thing. So you're relying on sound, on smell, and your senses to understand, and your support and help from other players.
Sorry, on smell. We'll get into that in a second. Okay, keep going.
Yep. B2, you've got some vision capability, and that could be something like tunnel vision. So the imagination there is that if you're looking through, say, like a toilet roll holder, an example, or you can see precisely down that very, very narrow lens. Outside of that, it's blurry, it's fuzzy. You can't see a thing. So you've got no depth perception. You might be able to see what's going on, but when it comes to moving towards the ball, depth perception is difficult. B3 is then getting to the higher end of the scale. And if I use some players from, say, Pakistan or Afghanistan, they may have been in the military, had an accident, lost an eye or partial an eye, but the other eye is 100%. So they've got, some would argue that players like Chris Rogers, who played Test cricket for Australia, yeah, he's actually vision impaired technically, yet he's played at the highest level of the game. So in your team structure, when it gets too competitive, you've got to have a mix of B1, B2, and B3. You can't be all of the one type. So it's to create some sort of balance.
3 grades of cricket. It's
no,
1 grade,
no.
And that's how you have to put 2 teams together.
Correct.
Yep.
And the ball, I've got some of the car actually downstairs. So the ball is it's a little bit. So the international ball is a little bit similar in size to a cricket ball, but it's generally white. It's a very hard plastic, and it's got like a rattling mechanism inside. The ball has to bounce. So when you're bowling it, the ball has to bounce in the bowler's half of the pitch first. Mm-hmm. If it goes in the other half of the pitch, it's a no ball or a free hit. Daniel Pritchard, who plays the Victorian Australian team, Daniel's been clocked at over 100 k's an hour, and I can assure you, I can assure you that one of those balls at 100 k's an hour, it hurts. Mm. And in the competitive field, if a B2 like Daniel, who's got partial sight, is bowling to a B1 who's got no sight, there's no holding back. They're full on. So there's no like, oh, he can't. No, you find a way. So
he's bowling overarm normally.
No, underarm. It's underarm. Underarm, because it's got to bounce in your half first before the second half. But then also brings into, there's a tactical element of the game, Paul, where you're allowed to roll the ball all the way, mm-hmm. and you can take pace on, pace off, different angle, different variations. There's wide rules in place, no different to conventional cricket. Yep. The difference is, though, that from a batting perspective, if a B1 player, when a B1 player scores a run, it's yep. double.
Oh, okay.
So if you hit a boundary, that's 8.
Cool. Yep. Or if they clear the boundary, it's 12.
Yeah, correct. And to put it in perspective, in context, a vision impaired game of T20 cricket, the scoring is not dissimilar to a conventional game. If we'd be aiming to score between 160 and 180 to win the match. Yep. There's more extras at times because some of the B1s, more wides, more extras. And they're also, one thing they're also tactically, they're bloody good at sneaking runs.
I was going to say, so the B1s, do they have anyone to sort of guide them when they run?
They have a runner. Yeah, they have a runner. Okay. So the B1 will be on strike, and he'll have a B2 or a B3 to act as a runner. Mm-hmm. And also then with the B3s in the field, generally you'll set them up closer in the ring. They have to wear a helmet. But they have different movement patterns that they can work off sound to block the ball with their body. And it's, to see it live, and I can send you a link later of some video of a highlights package that Cricket Australia streamed a few years ago. To see it live, it is so uplifting and incredible that the determination from the players, I would, from my own experience, Middlesex dressing room playing Nottingham, Victoria playing South Australia in vision impaired cricket, it's no different, mate. They are, it is no different. The ability, yes, but the inner passion, the drive, and the will to succeed, it is no different at all. And yeah, it's a growing part of the game. I mean, in Victoria now we have two divisions of teams play regular competition. New South Wales has got a strong competition together now and getting excellent support from their state governing body in facilities. We're not quite at the same level of competition internationally yet with other countries. That's purely because of the volume. I mean, people who grow up with it, forget the impairment, people who grew up in Pakistan, India or Afghanistan, they're playing cricket.
Yep. They're
not waiting for winter to come to go and play rugby. They're playing cricket all year round. So, we are seeing there's a gap in difference of ability there. Yet we're getting closer because skill level is quite extraordinary here. And I think also it's becoming more accepting to players of a younger age who are coming through. So in our national squad now, and there was supposed to be a training camp program which has been cancelled because of what we're going through. Yet of the, I think 15, 16 players in the squad, about 7 were under the age of 21.
Okay.
Yet they'd had between 3 to 6 years of actually playing competitively. So it wasn't token, isn't actually good enough to be at that that sort of level. So yeah.
And how old can they play through to? Is it? Is it
some in their 40s and 50s?
I was going to say, I imagine it's more of a skill-based rather than physical-based one. So hence, yes, you can play for much longer in your have a longer career because of because it's a skill-based sport.
Correct. Although some of the guys in the team, also it's not just guys, girls as well, but some of the players in the team who have those boundary rider roles in a match, they do a truckload of running when it comes to ground they have to cover. If you've got a good player who's able to sort of place the ball into the gaps in the outfield, so there is an element of fitness there as well. It defines from a coaching perspective, though, Paul. Really, it's allowed me as a coach in that space, bless you, to bring together all the things that you're taught, all your skills of communication, of effectiveness, because it's pretty hard to have a meaningful team meeting and you rely on eye contact. The other half of the guys can't see you.
Learning how to, learning new communication techniques.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and just to get finished on before, so you really do understand that it might sound funny, but the players do have a reliance upon their other senses. So their sound, the smell, just in being comfortable in that environment to perform, they do pick up. It's quite a remarkable thing. So feel free. It's an easy thing to volunteer. It's not massively intensive as far as effort that has to go into it. If I compare, so typically running a practice session for the vision impaired, which is no different. We do nets and we do outfielding, and it's just the same. Just it's at a slower pace. And what I would normally do with if I had to say 20 first grade cricketers in an hour and a half, it might take 2.5 hours for the vision impaired to go through the same lot of drills because things are slowed down a little bit. Yet it's much more very, very enjoyable when you see the look on their face and the noise between them when they do something good. So it's uplifting. It's brilliant.
Oh, cool. That's very good. So when you're talking about the different gaps between performance levels, are Pakistan, India the sort of the leading the way internationally? Is that, and then beneath that you've got Australia, England?
We're probably Australia, England probably. I can't really get a gauge on where England are right now directly because we're supposed to go there this year, which obviously we're not. That's not happening. And that would have been the first, I suppose, proper engagement between the countries. It's been a bit mixed in the past. Yet, if I go back to our 2 series ago, Pakistan would, for them against us, they would score, but in a 40 over match, they would score between 300 and 400, right. And we'd sort of get between about 220, sort of 250, and that would probably see us out in that sort of space. Probably that's where the gap was. There was probably about a 25-30% gap, but in their case, it was more just the volume and being able to play naturally from a. We'd love to play in Melbourne all year round, but we've got weather, which is a concern this sort of time of the year. And just to make a point there, here's me when I first started the vision impaired, thinking, I'll be able to take these guys to the MCG and get access to all these wonderful facilities. We'll be able to practice like more regularly. And we started doing that. And after the third session, the players said, Coach, they said, we can't come here anymore. I said, what's wrong? They said, well, it's nice, but we can't hear. We can't use our hearing because there's so many echoes, and we're hearing each other's voices indoors. And you go to the MCG nets, which is 6 nets indoors. It's a great top level facility, but then you go, yeah, you can't, because you're relying upon the bowler to announce he's releasing the ball, and all the players communicating with voice, and for them it was ineffective because the sound reverberating just distorted their ability to concentrate. So you sort of learned from a coach that, okay, in that case, I'm thinking more volume will help them become better.
Yep.
Whereas actually less is, but yet having a better quality session outdoors was more meaningful for them than doing something indoors. Yeah. So you sort of learn those little intricacies as well.
Or the next thing is to say, MCG, can you please line the walls and the roof with sound deadening foam, please, like a sound studio.
Possibly, yeah.
the other route down that one. Always looking for solution rather than for these things. I've gone blank, so I was going with this, but look, it's fantastic to see that. Sorry, you touched on. You said, is it mixed? As in men and female play to get in the same teams?
Yes. Can. That's allowable. That's allowable. That's encouraged. And it's really because, although now on the 2 years ago, for the first time, there were 3 state teams for deaf. So that was there were 3 state female teams for deaf cricket. Sorry, apologies. So we're recognising there's the numbers are significant enough to suggest that the population is there to be involved. What the sports haven't done very well, and where Cricket Australia is a massive help, is creating the awareness of it. And little thing. This is a little thing. I've seen this firsthand the last 2 years in a row. A small thing, yet at the Adelaide Test match, on the second day, the lunch break is virtually overtaken by all the South Australian disability teams to come out to demonstrate. But then generally they're actually pretty bloody good. They win a trophy most years. They get to do a lap of honour as well, which is good luck to them. Yet they make that lunch break, that the focus is on the all ability sort of space, whether it be deaf, vision impaired, or impaired all ability. So just having that more greater awareness at an Adelaide Oval packed with 20,000 people or so is something that Cricket Australia does exceptionally well. And also they do use their online media pretty well for it also. I just hope they can keep going ahead, because the audience is out there. It's just a matter of just drawing them in. Not unlike our comment before about go knock on your bowls club. You'll be amazed at how just go and find out. Last thing too, sorry, when I actually when I went through the 15 reasons why I didn't want to coach in this space, and then sat back and between myself and Carol and my partner, we worked out between us, we had more than 10 friends, associates or colleagues where we knew their children had a disability of some sort. So not saying cricket was, but it was like, this is not going to go away in our society.
No.
Kids will grow up with autism or some form of disability that if we can get them encouraged with sport, no matter what it may be, it will make their life more fulfilling. They'll meet more friends. They'll become more accepted. They'll be inspired by their own achievements, and that's something that we can all do, no matter where we come from, what our background is, because any sporting space we step onto the world should be a sport for all.
Yep.
Everybody should be welcome, and and they're all fans, aren't they?
Absolutely. It's well, actually, I prefer using the word supporters rather than fans, because supporters uplift and support the sport, whereas fans can sometimes be a bit bashing of a sport if things don't go the way they think it should do. But I think that's a fantastic way to finish. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. And we've not even touched on your real job either, which is around organising volunteers for big events and
some other time.
Another time, but those do include various sporting World Cups, etc. So yeah, not only so yes, again, you're another space that you got involved in the sport. I guess you're one of those people that they say, look, if you want to get something done, find someone busy. Yes, they might not have time, but hey, they're busy for a reason. It's because they get things done. I think you're one of those people. So it's been great to have the time with you today.
Thank you, Paul. But in all honesty, never ever busy. There's just things to do. And you've shown this. What, you've done 150 shows over 85 days?
Something like that, yes.
Keep going, mate. Keep going.
So, yeah, loving it, and it's been an absolute pleasure doing all these and meeting some wonderful people with these long talks. So please, folks, do subscribe to the New Zealand Sport Radio Facebook page. You can go back and look at the 20-odd long form interviews I've had with people such as the CEO of Wakaama Volleyball. We've also talked with All Blacks such as Rennie Ranger and various other coaches as well. So go back and look at those. And also, you can listen to us on the go. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio on your podcatcher, be that iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Acast, or whatever your favorite podcatcher is.